One thing that you will be asked to do a lot in Algebra 1 is to find the rule that matches what a table is doing. So you'll be asked to find the process rule, the function rule, or even called the equation that makes the table true. So there's 3 steps to do this. We always follow the same 3 steps. Step 1, we're just beginning with the starting amount. Our starting amount is when x equals 0, we're going to look for the number in y. That's our starting amount. Then we're going to find the differences in each one of our columns. So the differences or the rate of change will be step 2. And then step 3, we're going to just follow our little equation and we're going to plug in our information. So let's see how this works. Step 1 says to find the starting amount. So when x equals 0, right here, our starting amount will be this guy right here, the y value. So our starting amount is 0. Step 2 says we need to find the differences in each one of the columns. So let's start with our first column. Going from here to here, it's changing by positive 4. Going from here to here, it's changing by positive 4. Now let's look at the x column. Going from here to here, it's changing by positive 1. And going from here to here, again, it's changing by positive 1. So then we just follow our little division problem. The difference in our y column divided by the difference in our x column. So our difference in our y column is 4 divided by the difference in our x column of 1. 4 over 1 equals 4. And then step 3, we're going to write the function rule. So our rate of change is 4. So instead of rate of change, I'm going to plug in the 4. X plus my starting amount, we're going to plug in the starting amount of 0. So my rule is y equals 4 times x, which is 4x, and then plus 0. Do we need to add the plus 0? No, it doesn't add anything. So our answer, our rule is y equals 4x. Okay, so let's look at a second one. Step 1, begin with our starting amount. When our starting amount is when x is 0, our y is 9. So our starting amount is 9. Step 2 is find the differences in each column, finding our rate of change. So in this one, if we go from the 9 to the 6, is negative 3. If we go from the 6 to the 3, it's negative 3. Now let's look at the x column. From the 0 to the 2 is plus 2. From the 2 to the 4 is also plus 2. So now we're going to put it into our division problem. The difference in y, negative 3, over the difference in x, 2. So our rule, if we start plugging everything in, is we're going to take our rate of change, which is negative 3 over 2, x plus our starting amount of 9. So let's go ahead and write out the answer. Y equals negative 3 halves x plus, make that a nice looking plus, plus 9. That's our answer. So go ahead and pause the video and do number 3 following the exact same steps on your own. Okay, so our first examples, we were given the starting amount in the table. Well, what do you do if you're not given the x value equaling 0? We've got two ways you can go about it. The first is to use the process rule, the process table. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and find our rate of change, which in the y column it's changing by 2. In the x column, it's also changing by 2. So our rate of change is 2 over 2, which equals 1. So we're going to go ahead and put in our rate of change as 1. And then we have a parentheses where our x goes. So let's do that every time. So 1 times our x. So let's go ahead and fill in our x. 1 times x is 1 times 2. And when we do 1 times 2, that doesn't get us all the way to our output, which is supposed to be 8. So we need to add something to it. So 2 plus something equals 8. Well, that'll be 2 plus 6 equals 8. So our starting amount is 6. So we'll do plus 6 all the way down. So go ahead, pause the video for a minute, and just plug in your x input values here and verify that our process rule is correct. Our process rule works, so let's go ahead and write it. It's y equals 1x plus 6. Okay, sometimes you're also given a sequence and asked to put that sequence and figure out what the process rule is for the sequence. Always take your sequence and put it into a table. So I'm just going to make this my table. And it's the first term of the sequence, the second, the third, and the fourth. So all I've done is I've taken my sequence and I've put it into a table, labeling it as the first, second, third, and fourth term. So go ahead and pause your video, and what you're going to do is put these numbers into this really nice table that I've set up for you. Okay, so once you have your table set up, what we're going to do, instead of using our process column, is we're going to work backwards to 0. So we're just going to take our table, and what we're looking for is the 0 in the x column. So we're going to work our table backwards to get to 0. So if we look at this, we're going up 1, 1, 1. So to get to 0, we just have to do it one more time. So that follows our pattern, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at this one. We went 3, we went 3, we went 3. So to go one more time, we're going to have to add 3 more. So 8 plus 3 is 11. So our starting amount is 11. And now let's look at our rate of change. So going from here to here, from 8 to 5, we're going down -3. From 5 to 2, we're going down -3. From 1 to 2, we're going +1. So our rate of change is -3 over 1. So our rule is y equals -3x plus 11. Now, how do we know that this is true? Can we test it? Well, yes, we can. What I want you to do is to pause the video, and I want you to take the x term of 2 and plug it into our rule and verify that it equals the number 5. So go ahead and do that test and then turn the video back on. So as you can see, when we plug in for our x value the 2 and we work it out, our y value equals 5. So that's how we check our rule. Okay, so just like we did last class, we've got a situation where Raymond has bought a scooter for $600, and it's going to cost him $300 each year. So let's go ahead and write our rule. We know how to write a rule from a verbal situation. So we know that he paid $600. That's what he paid flat out. And then we also know, plus it's going to cost him every single year $300 a year. So that's a multiplication right there. So if we write the equation like we were doing last class, we would say the cost for Raymond owning this scooter is $600 plus $300 for every year. And they've asked us to use N for the years. So now that we've got the rule, what I want you to do is to pause the video and go ahead and plug in the total cost for 0 years, 1 year, 4 year, and 6 years. Okay, go ahead and check your numbers against the ones that I filled in. Now, let's talk about another thing you will be given a lot on checkpoints, on other tests, is the ability to take a pattern of figure. It'll be a pattern of figures and figure out what the rule is. So if we look at this, this is just like the sequence of numbers we just did. We've got our first term, our second term, and our third term. So we go ahead and just put these terms, or our figure number, in as the x value of our table. And then we fill out how many boxes. So our first term has 1 box, our second term has 3 boxes, our third term has 5 boxes. Now to figure out our function rule, we need a starting point. So we're going to have to work backwards to 0. So 3, 2, 1, 0 is our very next one. Working this backwards, 5 to 3, we're going down 2. 3 to 1, we're going down 2. So what is 1 minus 2? -1. So our starting point, we've just worked our table backwards, is going to be this -1. So let's go ahead and put -1 as our starting point. Okay, then we have to look at our rate of change. So we just figured out that this table, the y is changing by +2, and our x is changing by +1. So when we put y, the change in y, over the change in x, 2 over 1, that's 2. So we've got 2x plus our starting point of -1. So 2x plus -1. So let's go ahead and graph this table. We've got a 1, 1. We're going to put it right here. Then we're going to go out 2 and up 3 and put 1 right here. And out 3 and go up 5. So there's our graph. Now I want you to pause the video and I want you to plug in how many tiles would you need for figure 10. So you're going to plug in, instead of an x, you're going to plug in a 10. And then you're going to do the same for 35. So go ahead and check your answers and make sure you got the same ones. And now let's look at another way that these are presented. Each unit has a perimeter. So the first unit has 3 sides, 1, 2, 3. So our perimeter is going to be 3. Our second one, and this is a little weird, so look at how this is done, is 1 side, 2 side, 3 side, 4 side. So our second picture is 4. And then our third picture is 1 side, 2 side, 3 side, 4 side, 5 side. It's each little unit. So our third picture is 5. So let's go ahead. If we follow the pattern, these are going up by 1 each time. So plus 1. And these are going up. Plus 1. So we need to get our starting point. So we're going to work our table backwards. And if we work our table backwards, when we go back the other way to 0, when we take this one back the other way, it's going to be a 2. So our starting point is 2. So we can go ahead and write down plus 2. And then our rate of change is 1 in this column, 1 for our y's, over 1 for our x. So it's 1x plus 2. Okay, so now we're just going to graph these. So we have 1, 3. It's going to go about right there. We have 2, 4, and we have 3, 5. So I want you to pause the video for a minute and go ahead and fill in the rest of the table and complete the graph. So go ahead and verify that you filled in the table correctly and got it graphed, and then pause the video one more time and go ahead and figure out what the perimeter would be for figure 10. So you're going to be plugging in, instead of your x, you're going to be plugging in a 10, and you're going to be plugging in a 35. Go ahead and verify that you've done this correctly, and that's the end of the video. I'll see you tomorrow in class.